All right, y'all. So 1 week of Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp is officially in the books after veterans reported last Wednesday. And we also had a couple of padded practices added into the mix. So that means it's time to really start breaking down and evaluating what is going on the practice field. I'm Evan Winter with A to Z Sports. Let's talk about 10 Buccaneers players who have either seen their stock go up or down over the last week of camp. So right off the bat, got to talk about two pass rushers in Ruben Bain Jr. and David Walker. And we'll get to the latter here in just a second. But obviously, Ruben Bain Jr. was the gem of the Buccaneers offseason when they took him 15th overall. And he was very good during OTAs and minicamp. So the question was, hey, will this bleed over into training camp? And then what does he look like when the pads come on? Well, we've gotten our answers so far. Bain has been everything the Buccaneers and we thought he would be. He's got that bend. He's got that explosiveness, just that fierceness that he plays with. And sure, while he admitted the other day that Luke Gedeke has gotten the best of him a couple times, well, Bain has also gotten the best of Gedeke a couple of times. But that still leads me to say that David Walker has probably been the most impressive pass rusher and maybe the most impressive player overall so far during the training camp. At one point, he had a sack in 5 straight practices. And just like Bain, he's a little bit of a shorter, stouter guy, but he's got the bend, he's got the twitchiness, he's got the explosiveness. He plays with a mean streak that's really propelled him to probably that third guy in the pass rush rotation. We talked about this the other day. If these two guys can play like this during the regular season, that gives the Buccaneers a 3-man pass rush rotation, a very solid 3-man pass rush rotation that hasn't been here since Todd Bowles arrived in 2019. So moving on to the next guy, and I'll be real with y'all. Maybe there's a lot of you out there who haven't heard his name, but trust me, you're going to continue to hear his name moving forward over the next few weeks. And that's Aiden Garnes, the undrafted free agent rookie out of Arizona. Garnes has really stepped up in place of Benjamin Morrison, who really hasn't been on the field because of injury. And I mean, Todd Bowles even talked about it the other day, how he's doing a very good job, and he's inching closer and closer to making this 53-man roster. And that's huge for the Buccaneers cornerback depth because the depth is shaky, to say the least, and they need somebody to really step up and kind of fill that void. And so far, Garnes is doing that. And this shouldn't be a surprise if Garnes makes the 53-man roster, just not based on what he's doing himself, but the fact that the Buccaneers have been very good at finding undrafted free agents over the last few years. Sean Tucker, Christian Izien, Benjamin Chukwuma, among plenty of others. But, you know, if Garnes does continue to do this, he'll follow a pretty decent line of players who have not only made the roster, but have had some very good moments and contributions over the last few years. And speaking of undrafted free agents, Benjamin Chukwuma, he's next up on this list. And the guy's been filling in for Tristan Wirfs while Wirfs is out with the hamstring injury. And per reports, he's been doing pretty well. And that's absolutely huge for swing tackle depth, just like we talked about with Garnes and his ability to provide viable depth. But let's be real for a second. Tristan Wirfs, the past year and change, has not been kind to him health-wise. Luke Gedeke has missed games over the last 2 years, various injuries. Last year was the foot. Year before that was some concussion stuff. So swing tackle is probably one of the more underrated yet key positions on a football roster. And the Buccaneers, if Benjamin Chukwuma can continue his development, not only will have a solid swing tackle headed in 2026, but even though Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke are still young and very good in their prime, Buccaneers might have themselves a viable starter down the road in Chukwuma. Next up is Josiah Trotter, the rookie linebacker, second-round pick out of Missouri. Trotter has been on fire these last few practices. And, I mean, he got pretty feisty on Tuesday night to the point where Alex Anzalone had to kind of cool him off. And it goes just right back to what Todd Bowles was saying. Like, he's a kind of a quiet guy in the meetings and, you know, in the huddle, in the locker room. But, man, when he gets on that field, he lets it all out, just like his dad did. If y'all remember Jeremiah Trotter, the famous linebacker for the Eagles. And it's really provided some resounding practice performances over the last couple of days. And this is what the Buccaneers need at that position next to Alex Anzalone. They need that guy who can shoot the gap, that can go downhill, that just plays with that just nasty demeanor. And honestly, like, say what you want about Devin White, but for those couple of years there, Devin White was a very valuable piece of this defense because he did exactly that. He shot gaps, he got after the quarterback, he made plays in the backfield, coverage. We can talk about that a whole nother day. But for this Buccaneers defense to perform the way Todd Bowles envisions, the second level has to stay in check with good players. And so far, Trotter's been the guy who can probably help the Buccaneers second level get back to that, 2020, 2021 type phase where, they're just flying around the field, again, making plays in the backfield and also making plays in the passing game when we're talking about Alex Anzalone. And then last up on the guys who have seen their stock go up is Antoine Winfield Jr. And Todd Bowles has said that this has been the best offseason Antoine Winfield Jr. has had as a Buccaneer. And that's huge because the guy was the best safety in football in 2023. And that was also the year that he got a first-team All-Pro. And the Buccaneers moved him around a lot that year, which is what he does best. He, just attacking from all different areas of the field. And that's what they're doing again this year. Now, that was the plan last year too, but injuries obviously derailed that. So as long as the team stays healthy, that should be the plan. But regardless, to hear that about Antoine Winfield Jr., who is as professional as they come, that's a really nice signal and gives you something to really pay attention to, not just over the next few weeks, but, once the regular season kicks off. All right, so we've talked about the good over the first week of Buccaneers training camp. So naturally, now we got to reverse course and talk about the bad. So the guys who have seen their stock go down over the last week, definitely Devin Culp leads the list. He showed some flashes in 2024 when he had to fill in for Cade Otton, and some people expected him to take a pretty big step in 2025. Now, I'm not saying 50 catches over 500 yards, several touchdowns, or, numbers like that, but at least slotting himself into certain situations and, whatever part of the game to where, yes, he can make plays down the field or however he's utilized. I mean, let's be real. Even though he's a 7th-round pick and he's struggling right now, the dude has some pretty tangible traits when it comes to becoming a playmaker and a weapon in this offense. He's fast. He's got 4.3 speed. He's big, and he's really good after the catch. Why he's struggling, not sure. Could be a processing thing. As we all know, the NFL game is so mental. Like, you have to know what you're doing in terms of what you're studying and how you're processing things, all that other stuff. But the point remains, with 4 tight ends ahead of him in Cade Otton, Payne Durham, Kokeef, and Bauer Sharp, it's not looking good for Devin Culp. It was reported that he's been dropping passes and he's just not making an impact. Like, if he is making an impact, it's more of a net negative than a net positive. And that firmly puts him on the outside looking in because there's no way this team carries 5 tight ends into 2026. Second up on guys who've seen their stock down, and you probably guessed he was going to be on this list at a certain point, but it's Benjamin Morrison. And look, it's just because he hasn't been on the field enough, right? Now, granted, that's allowed guys like Aiden Garnes to step up and make some noise, but still, Benjamin Morrison is a 2nd-round pick. As I've talked about numerous times, the Buccaneers have big plans for him in this defense for 2026. Still, though, if you're not on the field, man, you're going to move down the depth chart. So that's exactly what's happened with Morrison. Now he is back to like where he can practice in 11-on-11s and stuff. The Buccaneers are still slow playing it, and that's a good thing because even though Todd Bowles said that his current hamstring issue is not the same hamstring that bothered him last year, honestly, if you ask me, that might be a little bit more cause for concern because now that means his other hamstring isn't holding up. So instead of just one being bad, you've got 2 that are potentially bad, and either could go at any minute. But regardless, until Morrison gets back on that field in a consistent manner, I'm not talking about just a practice here and there or some spot duty, whatever it is, until he is on that practice field consecutively and making plays, his stock's going to continue to go down. And I'm not saying he's in danger of getting cut like Devin Culp, but I mean, the NFL is a tough business. You never know. Still, Benjamin Morrison has to find a way to get back on this field, plain and simple. Next up is wide receiver Garrett Green, who personally I had some pretty high expectations for coming into this training camp. Not saying he was going to take Ted Hurst's job or, crack into that top receiver lineup. But still, with his return abilities and just the progress we've seen from last year to this year, you thought maybe he would be able to, make a little bit of noise. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. Pewter Report said on Tuesday night's practice, he dropped 3 passes. That's not good. And like when you look at the depth chart at the receiver position, the Buccaneers pretty much already have their top 5 guys locked in. And you can even argue they have their top 6 guys locked in, with Cam Johnson being that 6th guy because of his special teams ability. So when including Johnson, that leaves Garrett fighting for roughly one spot against 5 other guys, 5 other receivers. And with the progress David Sills has made up until his injury on Tuesday night, it's not looking good for Garrett Green. And he's really got to shine every single practice, and he hasn't done that, especially when you're dropping that many passes in a practice. Your stock's going to go down no matter what. And then to round all this out, and man, this is disappointing for me just from what I've been wanting to watch, or what I've been looking for, rather, I should say. And it's J.J. Roberts. And it's just like Benjamin Morrison. He just hasn't been on the field enough to really rise or even stay in that middle ground area. And it's disappointing. I also think his slow recovery from last year's knee injury is a reason why the Bucs signed Ife Melifonwu, a few days ago. And it's even more disappointing whenever considering Jason Light tabbed him as a player to watch when he spoke with the media a few months ago. As we all know, it takes a while to come back from knee injuries, usually 2 years till a player gets back to their true form. But with Roberts, after the addition of Melifonwu, is still just kind of finding his way back to the practice field. Got to put him on this list, unfortunately. So what do you think? Am I on the mark? Am I off? Kind of halfway there. What players do you think have had their stock go up or down over this first week of training camp? Let me know in the comments. We'll talk about it. But until then, keep your eye on A to Z Sports Bucs, and we'll see you around.